And we are preparing to go live. We're setting it up. Here we go. And then I'm gonna get in Facebook.
I see that we're already on YouTube.
And we are preparing to go live. Setting it up. Here we go. And then I'm gonna get. Yes, we are officially live, everybody. So I'm gonna take 2 seconds and I'm just gonna make sure all of our friends and familia can join us on Facebook. So I'm gonna do that really quickly, but in the meantime, Juanita and Alejandro, if you wanna just really quick introductions, just really brief, who you are, that would be great.
Okay. I'll go first. My name is Alejandro. I'm a local musician and teaching artist from Salinas, California. That is my brief introduction.
Thank you. My name is Juanita Vasquez. I am an educator and a creative mentor with the Artist Inc. And I am also an illustrator and I have a webcomic in the Monterey Bay area. And then, I don't know, Sandra, maybe you want to tell us your name? Sandra, ¿estás ahí?
Sí. Mi nombre es Sandra. Me gusta dibujar. And I don't know.
Perfect. All right, everybody, we are officially live on YouTube and también Facebook. Welcome, everybody. It is today Creative Leader Programs Workshop, and we have a super extra amazing guest speaker, as all of our guest speakers are fabulous and amazing. But Alejandro, obviously, I have a very biased opinion because he's a great friend of ours. And so I'm really excited for all of us to talk and just hang out and to hear a little bit more from Alejandro. So let's kick this off with first, Alejandro, maybe tell us in more detail what you do. I know you're a musician, un músico, pero también eres like more, right? You do teatro, you also do a little bit of other artes. So tell us a little bit about the artworks that you do and what maybe started you on your artistic journey.
Okay, so like I said, my name is Alejandro. I am a musician of many facets, and I always say musician because throughout my musical journey, I've learned to play a lot of different instruments. So I play guitar, I play bass, piano, I sing, I play drums, all those things. I've been more recently, I've been learning more how to produce and stuff. So I've been doing a musical underscore for theater and stuff like that. And then I've worked with the teatro for a long time and in many facets, as an actor, as a musician, as a musical director. I've worked with groups playing a variety of styles of music. So I've never been married to one genre. I guess you can consider me a genre fluid, as I would say, because I've worked in a lot of different styles of music. But mainly, my heart resides with Latin music. Latin music in all its forms, because Latino music obviously is like very diverse, just like Latino art and Latino culture is all super diverse. So as is its music. So that's kind of the world that I've been immersed in. And yeah, my musical journey was kind of kicked off at a very, very young age. I don't know if you want me to go into the whole history right now. Yeah, okay, let's do it. Why not? I've been playing music for like almost the entirety of my whole life. I think as far back as I can remember, I think I want to say that like my passion and my love for music kind of started when I was maybe like 7 or 8 years old. I remember my parents took me to Texas, where my dad's family's from, And if you know anything about driving to Texas, it takes like 3-4 days to drive there or something. So it was a crazy journey. And my parents had one CD in the car. And that one CD played the entire road trip. So those 3 days it took to get to Texas, the whole time that we were in Texas, and the whole trip back. One CD. And the CD was Chico Che's Greatest Hits. Which I guess that's what made me fall in love with Chico Che. But that was the first time that I had learned how to like memorize songs. So I want to say that that's kind of like where my, even though I didn't know it at the time, that's kind of where my musical like education started, because that's how I learned how to like memorize melodies and how to memorize lyrics. Because I was, I found myself like singing to the songs on the side when they weren't even playing anymore, because they were still playing in my head. And I was just, ¿Quién la ve con la cara tan bonita? ¿Quién la ve destrozando corazones? And I was like 7, 8 years old. I was a little kid, you know what I mean? And I had memorized all the songs on the CD, not just one. Like, I knew how to sing all the songs. And then past that, I would kind of just like, that was my thing. It was like my hobby to like just memorize songs. And I just really like to sing, so much that my sister had to tell me to shut up a few times when I was trying to sing along to other stuff. And my sister really introduced me to, well, both my mom and my sister, because they were both like really big like music lovers. They both had huge like CD and record collections that I would kind of like flip through when I was a kid, and super diverse. Like where my mom liked a lot of like Bukis and Chico Che and like old school like mariachi and like grupos románticos and stuff like that. So I was really into that stuff that my mom liked. And then my sister at the time, not so much anymore, but my sister at the time was really into like pop punk and like a lot of like old school like neo soul and like R&B and stuff. So I think my first band that I was like super into was like Green Day, and like I would watch the videos and like because she had like a DVD of the music videos, and I would like watch the videos and like put the subtitles so I could memorize the words and like sing along and stuff. So that's how I kind of started like understanding like song structure, even though I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but understanding song structure and singing and all that stuff. And I also took some music classes like in elementary school, but it was just little things where we sang like God Bless America and like Apples and Bananas, and nothing super crazy. But I'm sure I picked something up from there. I just don't really remember too much about it. I remember more just kind of learning stuff on my own on the side and stuff.
Yeah, across yes. I had a question just because I'm hearing you immediately as I'm listening to what you're talking about, as far as like, because I feel like there's a lot of artists out there, a lot of young students as well as adults who I feel like could relate so much to already, like the story that you're telling us, as far as like getting stuck with the one CD, right, the one like album in the car, which actually. It's so funny. So I was like, when was the last time a CD got cut in my car? Because cars now these days. But the last CD that got cut in my car was Quien Sabe CD, which is hilarious, because he's also part of Quien Sabe. But something else that had, the main thing that had stood out to me was thinking about when you were talking about when you were a kid, right? And in school you had kind of these classes that did, I'm sure, in some way affect you as a musician and sure. As an artist. But now that you are el maestro of all these other kids, right, like ¿cómo te sientes? Like how do you feel like thinking about that and like thinking about young Alejandro, and like does that affect the way that you teach, and does it affect like how you do things as an artist?
It definitely does, because I've kind of like, I feel so much remorse for the way that I treated my music teacher. Like because now I'm thinking about like, and this is probably the wrong answer to the question, but like I think about like the kids in my class that like, because I love all my students, but all of us that are teachers, we obviously have those kids that are a little more excited than all the other kids to do stuff, or like whatever. And I was definitely that kid. I was like that kid that like wouldn't stop talking, or I was like trying to be the payaso of the class and everything. And like I think I always like, I connect with that kid. When I see that kid in my class, I connect to that kid, because that reminds me of like what I was doing when I was that kid. So I try to I try to connect as much as I can and understand what they're going through and what it is that they're psychologically, feeling. But I've also, like, through teaching, I've stolen a few things that I remember, like the vague things that I remember about the way that about my elementary music teacher that she would tell us about, uh one of them being like, because there was like a really small amount of things that really like stuck with me, but I remember one of them was uh like if you mess up, keep going. Okay. If you like any little error or anything, no one's gonna really notice it unless you like continue to like work on it, or just like push through, um random little things like that. But I don't, like I said, I don't remember too much. It was a lot of hot cross buns and like stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that's great though. That's awesome. I think about that too because, for me, I did a lot of theater and teatro when I was younger, right? And so when I go into the classroom, a lot of the times, like, it's so funny because I feel like you've been teaching for such a long time now, right? Like you've been teaching for like, what is it, like 7 years now, maybe more?
So, yeah, 6 7 years around there.
So that's a good amount of time. And I feel like as time goes on, like exactly like you're saying, it kind of like you start to forget the little things, right? The little things that you learned when you were younger, but also, pero también it's also like you start to like forget about little you a little bit, right? And so it's interesting. And I always like to know like what part of you as the artist and as a teacher, but also as a student, kind of holds on and like how it influences you as you do the art and as you teach and just go about doing what you're doing. So that's awesome. I love it. I think it's great. And even though hot cross buns is, a different kind of level of the artistry, let's say the basics, it's still something that's stuck, so we'll give it its due diligence, its due credit.
Yeah, it definitely deserves its due diligence. But it's interesting because like going off what you were saying, like kids are such like creative little beings. Like they're just naturally like, because they don't have like responsibilities and they haven't been like tormented by the world around them like how the emotional maturity that adults have or whatever. Kids don't have that, so they're just like creative. Like they just have big imaginations. So like I guess the challenge for me as like a teacher is when I see that kid that's just like extremely like creative but doesn't know how to control it. Like they're just trying to make it into like, how can I make this interesting, like whatever, and it gets to the point to where it's like disruptive. My challenge is trying to like, because usually like most teachers like that are not like music teachers or art teachers or anything, their like immediate reaction is like to try to shut that kid down, like to try to like like the things that I hate hearing in classrooms is like, okay, rule number one is be quiet. Be quiet is not a good rule. Like it's not just obedience, it's not be quiet, it's listen and you have to find a way to like nurture that creativity, but teaching a student to discipline themselves to like to use it when it's necessary, you know what I mean, to listen and be silent when it's time to be silent, and to be creative and open when it's time to be creative and open. Because otherwise they're gonna grow up thinking that they just have to be like silent and restrain all of that and like kind of like oppress all of their like creative instinct instead of like nurturing it, because because they just don't know how to channel it yet, you know what I mean. And so
yes, I love it. I love it so much because I feel like similarly, and Juanita, you can definitely pipe in where you kind of agree. But I feel like for me, also as a teacher, right, that's kind of a thing for me too. Like it's kind of like it strikes a nerve for me. But also because like part of what I teach students, and what we try to bring in Artist Inc. as well is like, it's not really about like being quiet or like not moving or whatever, but it's about controlling your energy and remembering like that's a powerful thing, being able to control your own energy and identify like, oh, I've got all this energy, okay, I'm gonna hone it in, I'm gonna grab it, and then I'm gonna use it exactly where I need it, right, or exactly like where it's meant to go. And then it's going to be even more powerful, even more potent, and I'm going to be even more amazing because I was able to use my energy the right way. So I think that's so amazing that you're teaching that to other students and helping them harness their own energy and power. Whoa.
Yeah, I do have a question, and this is, I'm thinking about this when you're talking about it. Because you're learning, right? You just mentioned that you were learning, memorizing things from a CD. And me, coming from an educator background, I see this all the time where it's you're dumping knowledge onto students without knowing that they already have that knowledge, right? So I'm just wondering how, were you, maybe you can talk a little bit about like coming into a classroom and already having some, like you're saying, you didn't recognize that you already knew some music structure, right? Or how to do those things, and how, if that was augmented, supplemented, with formal music training, or if that was just, you just did it on your own, or which one do you find more enjoyable?
Uh,
Like in a structured classroom, is it better for you? Was it your experience better learning actual music in a classroom, or just whenever you find a genre that you like and you decide to pursue that on your own?
I think it's important to nurture like both, definitely, because just like strictly learning like music theory or learning the by the book, like everything, like that's all important because that's all like those are all tools that you could use to enhance your creativity, whether it's music or art or whatever it is. Like those are all the necessary tools that you need to like expand, but you're not gonna find like passion for music that way. You're not gonna find passion for music by learning how quarter notes work, or learn or reading a staff. That's all important stuff, but that's not why I fell in love with music. I didn't even know that I didn't even know music theory existed when I was listening to Los Bukis in my mom's car. You know what I mean? So like, if it weren't for that, kind of like I feel like, I guess the best way to answer is like I think you need to find the love and like the passion and the energy first before you like understand the fundamentals. You know what I mean? Both are extremely important, but I think the real energy and the heart and soul that goes into like art is it always comes first. That comes first before I don't know what you want to call it. Fundamentals is, I guess, what I call it. Structure. Yeah.
Have you seen that your style has evolved? Because you said that you're mostly focused on Latin music, right? Or Latin American, because I think it's valid, right? It's also so different
Yeah.
across Latin America. So have you seen that your style has evolved? Or did you start with something and then just stuck with it?
Yeah, extremely. So after like once I was like in middle school, like early high school, that's kind of like where you start developing your identity, pues. So that's when you start and I found like music is like a real like identity thing, because like people really identify with like, I listen to this kind of music, so I'm this kind of person. You know what I mean? So like, uh, when I started playing guitar, the immediately what I wanted to learn was like metal. I was like super into like Metallica and like Megadeth and Testament and stuff like that. And so that's like instantly, that's the only thing I wanted to play. Like I didn't care about all that other stuff that I liked before. I was like, I don't like that anymore. I denied I denied that even existed. Like that I ever listened to Green Day, or that I ever listened to like Los Bookies or anything. I was like, I went through a phase where I was just like, I'm a metalhead, and that's what I want. And you know what I mean? And so like, I I but that's a really good place to learn though, because like when you're learning a style like thrash metal, like it's very advanced. So you set the bar really high. So anything else comes pretty simple. So uh so I started like a little like metal band in high school. Um and like I said, that's pretty much what I focused on. But I think through so that was my first like creative project with like a group of people. And if you know anything about creative projects, they can fall apart very easily if everybody's not giving their 100%, and especially when you're all like freshmen, sophomores in high school, like not everybody's like taking it seriously. So I felt like the only one that was kind of like trying really hard to make it like a thing that we were playing in a band, to like trying to make our band like you know um, succeed, pues. And everybody else was kind of just like hanging out and like playing for fun or whatever. We would play shows and stuff, but we would play like the talent show, and then we would play like someplace, and we would get paid like $100, like for like five of us. Like it seemed like a lot at the time, but it's nothing. Um, and I guess through kind of like that falling apart, I started to kind of like expand my musical horizons a little bit more. So I started learning more. I started getting more into like alternative and like reggae and ska and like all these different styles. And I kind of decided that what I wanted to do was like a mixed genre thing. So I taught myself how to like I bought myself like a little 4-track recorder. I should have brought it. I still have it. Like a little 4-track recorder where I taught myself how to like produce basically, but back then that's what you used. You use those little like 4-track things. So like I would produce my own like little like mixtapes. And I think I made like 4 of them. And it was a bunch of different styles. It was like it would have like reggae, then it would have rock, and then it would have punk, and then it would have like romanticas, and then it would have like sort of like mariachi esque stuff, and it would be like a mix of things. So I would call it a mixtape, supposedly, even though I wasn't a rapper, but they were like my mixtapes. So there was like Handro's mixtape 1 and Handro's mixtape 2, and I would make the cover art and I would do everything. I would like I would burn CDs and I would make them into like these little packages, and I would burn like a stack of CDs, and I would take them to school and like pass them out and stuff, and I would try to be like that kid, like, hey, listen to my music. I would try to sell them, but nobody wanted to buy them, so I just ended up like giving them out. And that was my thing for a long time, was just kind of like just my focus was just on like writing songs in like a bunch of different styles. Okay, but like my focus was mainly at the time was like reggae, ska, like towards the end of high school, like, and that wasn't like really popular yet, so it was like very people were really confused as to what I was doing, but I was doing it because I liked it, you know, that was my thing. And then I also had I had a neighbor who played accordion. So then like we would hang out too, and he was into just like straight up like regional, like old school, like Ramon Ayala, and like Tiranos del Norte was like his favorite band ever. He had a picture of them like on his wall. And so he like taught me like how to play that music. Like I never had an interest in playing like regional or anything. So like at the same time that I was kind of like falling out of love with like metal and like my metal band breaking up and doing my own little like mixed genre project, I was also learning how to play traditional music, how to play like regional, like at the same time. So I was kind of like soaking in all these different styles at the same time, and I think that's kind of what contributed to my like immense like palette of like of different styles of music and different styles of like playing, because that's a lot of different technique to learn at the same time. And I was kind of like halfway learning them, some of them, and like some of them learning them like really the proper way that you're supposed to do it. But yeah, and then over time it really changed, you know. Really it depended on who it was that I was hanging out with at the time, because you know those were my musical friends that I was around in high school, and whatever they were playing, that's what I would try to soak in. Then when I graduated high school, then I wasn't around as many people anymore, because I, you know, like I don't know how many people are listening are still in high school, but that happens. You graduate and you're like, oh, we're gonna keep in touch. I'm gonna write in your yearbook and call me over the summer. That doesn't happen. You lose contact with tons of people from high school, and you never hear from them again, or you see them like way later working at Red Lobster, and you guys pretend like you don't know each other anymore. Like, so, but what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I had graduated, so I wasn't seeing a lot of the same people anymore, so I was mostly by myself, and I was kind of lost as to what I wanted to do. But I knew I wanted to keep like pursuing music. So what I ended up doing is I moved to San Jose with my brother, and I went to Foothill College, where they actually have a really cool music program, because they don't just have like regular music classes. They had like songwriting, and they had music business and music publishing, and like things that were like way different. So like I had no idea about any of that stuff until I was a freshman in college, like learning about all this stuff, and then like working on my songwriting as like a craft, like which I had never really thought about it that way. It's like I didn't really think songwriting was a craft in and of itself, like as opposed to just being a musician or being a guitarist or whatever. Um, so from there, then I started a another project, which was like my first like serious band, I guess. But we were more just kind of like a local band. We were called Dub Dog. I don't know if anybody has heard of us, but that was the first band where we would go out and play like local shows, and we were trying to get into like the scene or whatever, and it was some of those a lot of those people are still people that I hang out with like regularly and talk to, but I was still kind of like lost as to what I wanted to do, because what I was struggling with a lot was like understanding how to get from like point A to point B. Like, how do I get from just like where I am now to being able to support myself as like a musician? Like, because like my goal was like never like, obviously I had like some like delusions of grandeur where I wanted to be like super famous and like acá, but really all I wanted was like, I want to like not have to work a regular job and just support myself playing music. Like, I want to just like something in music. Like, and I didn't like that was my first introduction into the world of like that there's all these different things. You could like be a producer, you could be a music director, you could be a music supervisor, you could be like a session player. Like, there's all these things, you know what I mean? But I wasn't sure exactly how to get there. So like, and it took me a little too long to like finish college, I guess, because I wasn't as focused as I should have been, which is one of my only regrets is not focusing more on school when like right out of high school. So
Good PSA, but I will say, I wanted you to finish your thought, but I will say that was your path. That was how your path was meant to be, right? Like, sometimes I think it takes a little bit more for us to live life and kind of see the world around us and like kind of like capture, okay, this is what the world is, because those are really pivotal years in of your youth, right? Like, even though you've graduated high school, now it's your very first time of establishing yourself and figuring out like you're responsible for your own life. You're responsible for how things go and like what's going to happen. And so there's a little bit of like a, transition. And what's important is that you did find your way back to education, right? You did find your way back to like completing that. And from what I hear, you are continuing that education to this day. So I don't want to cut you off from where you're going, but I also want to just acknowledge and honor like your journey, right? Because not everybody's journey is going to be as simple as like, I'm going to go to college and then right out of college, I have a job, right? Or I'm going to go to college and then immediately I'm going to know what I'm doing. And it's okay. I think that I feel like that kind of like stigma or that kind of concept should kind of be broken down a little bit, because you gotta give yourself some grace. As long as you're, continuing to try to, better yourself and educate yourself and learn, then I think you're still on the right path. And you're such a great example of that. You're such a good example of like, well, I still, was passionate about what I wanted to do. And, I kind of got a little confused along the way, but I found my way, and that's okay. And I think that more youth need that as an example. So I just wanted to point that out. But continue, please.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I'm glad you said that, because it really is like it's like you said, those are really pivotal years in like a young person's life. Like right when you're out of high school, like you're expected to like figure it out like that, like figure out what you want to do, and then you have to start doing that. Like most people graduate high school and they're like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, and they like usually one of two things happen. Either they like pick something and they force themselves to like, all right, that's what I'm gonna do, I guess, and then they just do it even though their heart's not really in it, or they're just like, like I'm just gonna kick it and do my own thing, but they have no like direction, like, and if you don't like, and that's, I guess, one of the main messages from my story that you could take away is like, you got to surround yourself with people that are going to inspire you to like to do things, like wherever that is. Okay, if that's in education, or if it's in art, or if it's in a trade, or whatever it is, like if you're around the right people, then the right people are going to push you towards the right things. Because all the decisions that I made, I always made them like I didn't make them on my own. Like I didn't I if it were up to me, I would have not gone to college at all. Like I was like, I don't want to go to college. Like I'm gonna be a rock star and I'm gonna play music and that's my thing. But because I had my parents telling me, who my parents never went to college, so my parents were telling, obviously, like I'm first generation, so like their whole goal was for their kids to go to college. Like I had my brother telling me, I had other friends that were all going to college and doing that thing. So like if I hadn't had that, then I wouldn't have pushed myself to do that in the first place. Um, but but even then, like you said, like that was part of my paths, because like even then I learned a lot. Like um, uh, because then, so where I was going with that was uh after I didn't I my dad expected me to finish community college in 2 years, and that didn't happen because I kind of like I focused like really hard on just like playing music and other things that I probably shouldn't have been doing, but I was focusing really hard on trying to like make music a career, and I wasn't thinking that education was a part of that. Like in my at that time in my mind those things were separate. So like I didn't really like put the two together as like one thing. So because I didn't finish school fast enough, my dad was like, "All right, well, I'm not paying your tuition, so you got to figure it out." Okay? And also you have a car now, so you got to pay that off, and you have to pay gas, and you got to pay your phone. And I was entering the world of adulthood, and bills. I don't know how many of you guys are in high school or what, but bills are right around the corner. So expect them. They come out of nowhere, no avisan, and it's not fun. So because that happened, obviously I was like, well, I guess I gotta get a job, and that's my only path. And I've only had like three like jobs, like jobs, like that weren't like creative anything. Like I think I started out working at like Anchor Blue, which is a store that doesn't even exist anymore. And I only worked there because they were closing and they were desperate to hire people. So I worked there for like a month, and I hated it because it was dumb, a mall job. Uh, I worked at like a factory that made like scopes for like lasers for like weapons for the military, and I don't support the military, like, so that really hurt my soul to to be like working for like the forces of evil or whatever. I was all like self-righteous at the time, so I was like I need to get out of here. um and then my last job was I was working as like a dishwasher slash line cook at like this like fancy hotel in Carmel, and that was more enjoyable because at least I was like learning something, because I was learning how to cook and stuff, which is a very useful life skill that everybody needs. If you don't know how to cook, that's very important. You gotta learn. Um, so that was cool, but what I didn't like about it was that it was nothing like super creative that I was doing with music, and also I was like catering to like wealthy people, and that's always kind of bothered me. I don't like to um, cater to like or do any kind of like positive work towards people who already have everything. I wanted to help people that didn't have anything. I would much rather like help my community and things like that. And luckily during that time I had a friend um, who who I had met just from being in creative circles and stuff, um, and playing in bands, playing in Quien Sabe and stuff, uh, who was a part of an after school program organization. And he said, "We're looking for teachers. We want people from our community to teach music to our kids." And I had never taught before, so I was kind of like skeptical about it. But I was like at my wits with that job, so I was like this close to quitting, and something pushed me over to the edge, and I just like decided, like, I took a leap of faith and I just decided to quit like entirely. And I said, I'm never working a job like that again, and I went straight into teaching, even though like I knew it wasn't going to pay as well, but I knew that like somehow that was going to help me like push myself further into something like bigger than just having a job. You know what I mean? Because you don't want a job, you want a career, and like that's and I'm so glad that I did that, because to this day I'm still working like with organizations like that. And yeah, it really helped a lot to take that big leap of faith. Yeah.
Awesome. So I mean, I love all of it. And I feel like there's like so many lessons that we can take from a lot of your just like personal experience. And I think that's awesome. I feel like it's very, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for being so like open and honest about your journey. I think that a lot of people sometimes tend to like kind of graze over their journey or graze over like their story a little bit and like skip the parts that are a little bit like less like that are more murky, right? That it's like, oh yeah, less glamorous. There you go, less glamorous, and just like what's not what not a lot of people consider like the typical journey, right? Or like the typical like, oh, this is you go from point A to point B, and this is what it looks like, and whatever. So I appreciate that a lot, especially because I feel like it resonates a lot in my own personal journey. But it is 6:20, and hearing all of your beautiful stories, I feel like the time, the light, everything is calling upon the mystical, the magical powers of your beautiful song and musicianship, you know?
Yeah, not to be confused with musicianships, which are something entirely
Ships
different.
of musicians.
Yeah.
So we'd love to hear a couple of songs. I know you had a couple of prepped for us, so we'd love to hear it so we can hear what all of the Veil is about, right? Let's hear what all of this journey has built up to, what wonderfulness that it has built up into. So without further ado, everybody, Alejandro, El Flaco.
Okay. So I'm gonna play a song from my album that I released last year, under as my personal project. It's called Flaco Alejandro. The song's called Todo Sigue Igual, and I thought it's not like one of my better songs or anything, but I wanted to sing it because it talks about manifesting like things that you want, which is kind of what I like have spent the whole time talking about. Is like my whole journey I've just been kind of like trying to manifest like what it is that I wanted, and like the only thing that kept me going like through like not having money or not like or being lost in what I wanted to do or not being around the right people was just understanding that like I already set in place what it is that I want to do, and I'm not gonna stop until I get there. You know what I mean? So and I wrote a song about it, so it goes like this. It goes. Ay, cómo cambian las cosas, pero a la vez todo sigue igual. En este mundo nada dura para siempre, pero el que se cuida siempre va a lograr. Eso quiere decir, el fuerte de la mente va a sobresalir. Si todo fuera fácil, nunca aprenderás nada sobre tu ser, de tus fuerzas, opiniones, desventajas hay que ver. Que aprender es avanzar y avanzando es crecer. Eso tienes que saber. Si quieres navegar la vida, no se puede ver la luz sin un poco de oscuridad. Why, why? Si lo puedes creer, entonces lo puedes crear. Manifiesta lo que quieres, no le hagas caso a los demás. Nada es fácil en la vida, todos tienen que trabajar. Deja fuera la envidia, con tiempo todo va a llegar. La vida es un muy largo viaje, pero sin mapa porque se perdió. Y todos caminando sin saber a dónde van, mirando hacia afuera en vez de adentro porque están perdidos, buscando la felicidad. pero en lo material donde no exista la verdad, y lo que el alma quiere es alimento espiritual. Al fin todos vamos al mismo lugar, si es bajo quedamos igual, o hechos cenizas hechos de la brisa formando parte del viento total. Nada vamos a poder llevar al otro lado. Así es que lo que te importa más, si lo puedes creer, entonces lo puedes crear. Manifiesta lo que quieres, no le hagas caso a los demás. Nada es fácil en la vida, todos tienen que trabajar. Deja fuera la envidia, con tiempo todo va a llegar.
Bravo! I feel like me and Juanita just got our own personal concert. And
Sandra. Sandra.
También. I can't see Sandra's face, but también Sandra. Woo!
Oh, sí, Sandra's clapping.
Okay, there you go. Gracias por esa tormenta de aplausos.
So I know you've got some others under your sleeve for this evening, but before we move on to the next song, I actually wanted to open the floor up to Sandra. Si tienes preguntas para Alejandro, any questions that you have, or even just comments like, oh my God, Alejandro, you were so great. You did such a great job. Or Alejandro, wow, how did you get to be such a great musician? ¿Algunas preguntas, Sandra?
Sandra, ¿crees que te va a hacer música ya? Ahorita con este taller. ¿No?
He decidido cambiar de carrera.
Como si pienso, ¿qué?
Que si ya te vas a hacer música tú, ahorita con todo esto, con lo que has escuchado hoy. ¿O vas a seguir dibujando?
Pues me gusta cantar, pero casi no canto mucho. Mi dibujo, pues, más o menos, pero sí, estaría bien.
Okay. Un dueto.
Nice, good to keep in mind. Okay. Good, awesome. Okay, Alejandro, did you have another song you wanted to share with us before we move on to the next questions, or?
I didn't, but I can.
Oh, no, it's okay. You can, if you want to, you can. But I actually do. If you want a couple of questions in between there, that's totally fine. I can give you a couple of questions first. But I do have a couple of other questions.
Okay, I'll take your questions, comments.
These are my questions for 20.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to hear about your really great journey, so far. But we got to hear that at a young age, and then kind of getting into, your musicianship. So tell me a little bit, like, now that you have become the established musico that you are now, right? And the work that you've done, whether it be with Quien Sabe, whether you've done with the teatro, whether you've done with other, organizations, what are some really big, like, standout highlight projects or just events that you've gotten to, be part of?
Well, first of all, like, I think the biggest, like, pivotal moment in like my life that switched from me, like, thinking that I was just kind of like just gonna play music until I make it, quote unquote, to like envisioning my life in like a completely like different, like, envisioning my life as to like what it is now, was honestly when I started working with the teatro, which for those who aren't familiar, El Teatro Campesino is located in San Juan Bautista. Started on the picket lines of Delano, California. No, I'm not gonna tell the whole history, but when I started working with the teatro, that's what changed a lot of my like perspective of like how I wanted to envision myself as like an artist or as a creative, because I went from working, like I said, working as like a dishwasher, like minimum wage, dishwasher line cook and like playing in like a little local band that would just play here and there, to like teaching, to having like three different sources of like revenue and like education, which was teaching and after school programs. So like sharing my passion for music and also learning more about like music fundamentals in order to teach it to students. Working with the teatro, which is something that I never even like imagined myself doing. Working as a musician in plays, working as a music director, working as an actor, which I also never thought I would do. And then working with like performing, like writing, recording, and performing my original music with bands and like performing it like all over. So like that moment from when I started, I think that was like around like 2013, 2014 or something, around the same time that I met you. From that moment is where my life kind of shifted completely. So like that's like, it wasn't like anything like super big that I did, but it was like my life has never been the same since like that. So yeah.
I think that's a huge, that's awesome. That's perfect. I feel like, I mean, any answer you give is perfect because it's your answer and that's the story, right?
Yeah.
But I think that it's important to note that sometimes we expect in our lives for like the life-changing moment to be like this like huge like epic event, right? Like, oh, somebody's gonna find me, they're gonna discover me, and they're gonna hear me, and I'm gonna be like boom, blowing up. So I mean, I totally relate, because when I was a kid, I was like all about, you know, I started out singing, but I, you know, started doing theater at a really young age, and I was like, that's it. I'm going to perform. I'm going to be in movies. I'm going to sing, and it's going to be great, right?
Yeah.
But you're a kid, and because nobody teaches you, one, the power of what your art can do all by itself without having to be famous, right? Nobody tells you, you know, how to harness that power. And two, or maybe if you're lucky, they do. If you have really great mentors like Alejandro, right? That will teach you, right? Or Juanita, to teach you that your art is, you know, something that is powerful and, you know, can stand all by itself without having to say like, I'm a rock star or I'm famous, you know, this, whatever. I mean, that's great. That's great to, you know, be able to get to that point, and to be able to say like, hey, I'm up here at this point where I can speak to this many people and they can hear me. But I think that the life-changing moments come more when you recognize your own inner power, right? When you recognize your own ability as an individual and as an, you know, artist, to be able to take your art and create it for the people and for your communities and make it bigger, better, and stronger, in a way that really inspires, right? And I think that that's what that transition is for you, right? It's like you recognize like, oh, I see other artists that are using their art for, you know, for change, to create, you know, a better community, to inspire, and it starts to affect you as well. You're like, oh, hey, I could do that. I got that. And then you see it happen in real life. You're like, oh, dang, people are responding to my work. They're responding to, you know, what I'm doing. And like, I think that's really huge. That's such a great, like, turning point, you know, to recognize. And I think even for me, I feel like I had those moments too. And when you get to that moment where you're like, oh, it's not about the fame. It's about like the power that my art has, you know, has the ability to do and to inflict, like, amazing. So kudos to you, man. Freaking awesome.
Right. Because fame is great and all, you know, but it's like you said, it's the you, like I never envisioned that that's what I could be doing. And I think a lot of people around me, like, still like family members and stuff that like know me, I still don't think they like entirely understand that that's like, that when you discover a craft or have like a passion for something, you can use it in a lot of different ways. And you can use it to help your community, you can use it to like to empower yourself, and it can take you places. And honestly, like, music has been so good to me. Like, it's taken me places that I never thought I would go. Like, the fact that I was able to like I was asked to play with a group that like that had me go on my first tour, where like I toured all of California, with Quien Sabe, I was able to like travel to Mexico and to Colombia. Like I never thought I would go to Colombia. Like you know what I mean? And like with the teatro took me all the way to like to Washington D.C. to perform at the Kennedy Center, and I got to meet Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez's kids and like all these amazing people that like none of that would have happened if I would have never like opened myself up to like the possibility of it, you know? If I never would have opened myself up to the possibility, and if there wouldn't have been other people around me like pushing me to do things like that. You know what I mean? Like
That's super valid. And I do, I'm just wondering, and I know that we all have different measures of success. And obviously, some of us never feel like we've been successful. And even with what Emily is saying, right, you're growing into those things. But is there something that you would say, okay, these are things that I want to do in order for me to be successful, I need to have like all of these things? Or is it just evolving for you?
well, like I said before, like what my goal was always just to be able to support myself doing music, whatever facet that might be. Like before, I kind of just thought of it as like I want to support myself on my music, like my songs that I write and perform and record. I want to be able to make enough money off that somehow to support myself. But I think that's kind of changed over time because now like I'm supporting myself 100% on music. You know, I don't have all these nice things, and I'm not a rich person, but I have an apartment, I have a car, I have, like I'm not struggling is my point. You know what I mean? So like I've essentially reached the place where I've wanted to be like my whole life. But obviously, the sky's the limit. So there's a lot more I could still achieve and everything. But I think it's crazy to me to look back and like even with me like talking about like all these things that I did and like like my whole life trying to figure out what I wanted to do. It's crazy for me to think that like I'm doing it, like it's happening, it's real. So yeah, and that's one way to measure success, I guess.
With the online thing, I don't know if you're able to, if you have anything about that, measuring success online, or how you've been able to kind of create different communities online. And if you ever got, I know you made CDs when you were younger, but I don't know how young you were when you were making those. So how is that different now that we're mostly on a virtual format? How has it been difficult, creating communities? Has it been difficult? Has it been hard? Even, promoting yourself and all those things.
Well, it's a lot different now because I think like when I was in high school, social media was a complete different thing than what it is now. And I think like now there's like so many platforms for like for people to do things and to create communities, like you said, like and that just kind of didn't exist the same way like back then as it does now. So if anything, it's a lot more easy now. Like if I was like an adolescent growing up like in like this time, I feel like I could have done way more like online than I did back then. But no, it's not necessarily a struggle. It's just a matter of like learning how things work now. The other thing is I remember like my first like musical projects, there was no like standard of like how you would release music, or at least I didn't really understand what the standard was. I thought it was just like you make CDs and you sell them, like, and now there's now there's so many platforms. Now there's like all the like the major like music distributors, which are pretty simple to like release your music through. And then there's there's different formats, obviously like physical formats and everything. And so I think I don't know if it's a lot more straightforward now or if I just understand it a lot better now. But yeah, I don't know what the point was that I was trying to make, but that's the idea basically. Yeah.
So I had two, like, I don't know, like questions or like elaborations, right? And just kind of observations. One was, we're talking about Juanito made, the connection about like what your measure of success was, and you were like, well, I'm not struggling, right? And I love it. I think it's great. And part of it is because immediately when I hear that, I think like, oh, the starving artist, right? Like the typical starving artist that, you know, can't make it or whatever. Don't be an artist because you're going to starve, or don't be an artist because you're not going to, they're not going to pay you for nothing, right? Like they're,
And that's one of my pet peeves, which that like people tell me, because I feel like I've heard, like, not to cut you off, but like I just like I've heard that from so many people, like, oh, I think it's so great that you're an artist because not everybody can do that, not everybody can make that kind of sacrifice in their life. But the way that they're kind of saying it is like, oh, you're such a you're sacrificing your life to like to struggle and be like, I'm not struggling, like I make the same you do. Like we're living the same life, like basically just that this is my career and that's your career, like you know, it's not that you don't have to struggle to be an artist, you don't have to struggle and like not be able to survive, you know what I mean, like there's plenty of ways, you know, but anyway, as you were saying.
No, I agree. That's exactly it. That's exactly what I was trying to point out. Thank you. Because that's also part of like through Artist Inc. That's part of like what we're trying to break down too, is like people keep considering artists as like starving artists, and like art is like a hobby, but it's like, you know, what we've grown up with, kind of like that, you know, perception of like art's a hobby, it's not really a career. Art's, you know, fun, that's cute. Maybe it's a little bit of emotional support, but like you can't really make money off of that, or you can't have a life or a career off of that. And so we're here to tell you, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And Alejandro, hey, is a perfect example of that. So snaps to that. All the snaps.
My mom would always tell me that too. She would be like, no, mijo, es que la música es tu hobby. And I was like, it's not my hobby. And even she told me that like when I was really young, and I was like, it's not my hobby. Like skateboarding is my hobby. Skateboarding and video games are my hobby because I do those for fun on the side. But when I'm playing guitar, like for like 6 hours a day, that's not because it's a hobby. That's because I'm trying really hard to like do that. Like
it's your life, right?
Because it's my life. Like, and at that point, it wasn't my life yet. At that point, I was just playing guitar in my room by myself. Like, but I already knew. Like, I was like, that's not my hobby. Like, it's not just for fun. It's fun. But I want to make it my career because I love it so much, because I have so much fun doing it. I don't want to do anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's such a blessing. I feel like to be able to know that at such a young age. I feel like there's a lot of people that I've known growing up where they've always been like, oh, like you're so fortunate because you've always known what you wanted to do. You've always kind of, you know, had a direction. And I am very, you know, fortunate, but I did have a window of time in my, you know, my life where I was like, what am I doing with myself? Am I going the right direction? Is everything okay? You know.
And everyone has that.
So yeah, so I was gonna ask, did you ever have that window in your life where you were like, oh, my faith is being shaken, my passion, I love it so much, but what am I doing with myself? Did you ever have that? And what did you do when you had that moment? Or what brought you out of it?
Well, I definitely had that moment. So like I said, like when I came out of like I feel like I've had that moment several times. I want to say because obviously like I've had like with all my successes there have been an equal amount of like failures. Okay, or maybe not an equal amount, but like plenty of failures, like plenty of moments where I was like, man, I should just like not do this. I should just be normal and just like I could easily like go into something else and get a job. And like actually that's why someone had convinced me to like when I went into college, like I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to college, but the only way that I'm gonna go is if I major in music, because like that's what I want to do, so I might as well study it, right? But my dad was like, I'm not paying for you to go to MI, so you're gonna go to a regular college, you're gonna go to Foothill. So I went to Foothill, but I tried to study music, and then somebody like this is why it's important to like have the right kind of people around you, because someone like really talked me out of like being a music major because they like convinced me that wasn't lucrative. Like there's nothing that you could do with that. So like it's okay if you want to do music, but majoring in music is not going to give you anything. So like it makes a lot more sense for you to major in something else and like have that as like your backup career. Which is, I guess it's good advice, but I feel like it just kind of distracts you from whatever the main like thing you want to do is. So like I majored in sociology and I got my degree, and so that's what I have my degree in social sciences, um, which is great because I got my degree. But I feel like I could have I could have definitely benefited a lot more from like just following the path that I wanted to take. You know what I mean? Um, uh,
Yeah. I
but
feel like
I'm not sure exactly like what it is that like brought me out of that like window where I was like I don't know what I want to do. Probably just when I went, like I said, when I went from like working a job and like playing in like a little local band to teaching and working with the teatro, like once those opportunities opened up for me, that's when I was like, okay, I could do this. Like there's no reason for me to have to like struggle and work like little jobs. Like I can do this because like I see other people doing it and they're doing just fine. And not only that, but like when you work at like a regular job where people are just like clocking in, clocking out, like a lot of those people don't have like ambition to do things. Like they're just there. Like they're just comfortable like work like making like a decent amount of money and like that's it. And like if you're a creative person like all of us, like a lot of you guys listening, you know how hard it is to like have that kind of lifestyle, like because you don't want to just be here, like you don't want to just be in your little box and like comfortable, like you want to work towards something. And like it made a lot more sense for me when I started teaching and working with the teatro because like I was around other people like that and that inspired me to like push forward, you know what I mean? So like
yeah, I really love, or not love, but I really, it resonates with me, the backup plan. I feel like 16-year-old me, uh, whenever I heard the word backup plan, I would be like, like off the roof, like
yeah,
insulted, like so insulted. As an adult, I don't take it so personal, because like, I mean, nobody tells me that now because now like, you know, I'm older and, you know, I've made a life now, right? Like this is my life now.
yeah,
But the road to this path, right? The road to this area, and we're still like, I feel like all of us, anybody, right, as artists, like we're still infinitely always growing. That's the hope, is to always keep growing and being better and, you know, striving for the next thing, while acknowledging the beautiful in the present. But I feel like the backup plan, like I said, it really used to drive me wild, as you know, as a younger person. And I get that it's really well intended, right? People just don't want you to like, you know, fall on your face and then like have nothing to back you up. But as a young person, I think it strikes you as like, well, then you don't believe in me. You don't believe that it's, you know, it's possible for me to do this. And
it
I
causes,
think
I feel
there's,
like it causes a lot of self-doubt in a person
yeah.
to kind of
But
like
I will say, to be like kind of devil's advocate here, because like I said, I would have been super like upset by that when I was younger. But I do think that, and I have a question actually for you about that. Because although, you know, you were saying, you know, music probably would have been more like applicable to, you know, what you're doing. I'm curious if your sociology, you know, degree has come in handy or has informed some of the work that you do and the way of which you see the work that you do now.
it definitely has. Yeah, so it helped it like studying sociology, like first of all I had no idea what it was. I kind of just went into it because I feel like that's like the default like thing that people go into when they don't know what they want to do. Um but once I started studying about societal structures and social problems and all these things, it helped me a lot with songwriting. It helped me a lot with understanding the organizations that I work for, with teaching and all those things. So it has come in handy for sure. Not as much as like what I think a music degree would have done for me, but it's definitely like, you know, I don't regret like getting that degree or working towards it because it's come in handy. It's helped me a lot.
And you are currently working on that music degree, you know?
Yeah, so now now that I have that degree like out of the way, now I enrolled over here at CSUMB, where studying as a music major, which hopefully I'll be able to get a degree in composition or something nice.
No hopes, you're
music
gonna do it.
production, yeah. Well, music production, which is like the main thing that I've been studying like recently.
There's a couple of things that I want to point it out, and I think it's that as creatives, you know, when you're in a work, at least with work, right, in a work environment that you're not able to use any of your creative skills, that can be so, I don't know, it's like soul sucking almost, you know. It's like you have a day that passes and you're, you know, just how do I use this? So I think it's just always kind of important for people to kind of find that outlet, right? If you're a creative, then it's your hobby, but then it's not really your hobby because it's what you are, right? A creative, and just finding all those other outlets, even in your job. I know some jobs are very limited. Like I don't know if you could do anything creative at Anchor Blue, right? Maybe the way that you were organizing the stuff, right? But I just think about it in my own experiences. Sometimes it's like, well, maybe I will design this amazing newsletter, and that's going to be my creative outlet, right, for the day. But those are really important things to, you know, that I did want to point out. And two, you were so lucky, right, that you already, that kind of like what Emily was saying, that from the beginning you were like, this is what I want to do. And then you feel like that you have a lot of other creatives that are like, they're stuck in their 9 to 5, trying to get out of the 9 to 5 to make it, you know, the creative, their profession. So that, you know, it's just amazing that you always had that vision. I am wondering though about your parents, when they ever, not how they're doing, but
They're
when,
doing good.
but you know how, you know, like they wouldn't take you serious, not that they wouldn't take it seriously, but it's like, okay, you're not going to college for this, or are you actually a musician? What is their view now of you and music and making your living as a musician? What do they think?
So first of all, my parents, like, I don't know how I framed it, but my parents were always like super supportive. Like they were never like anti, you know, like no vas a tocar música, or like, it was never like that. It was like they were always supportive. Like they bought me my first guitar, and they were always like down with what I was doing, and like I explained it to them. But it's just I think they just it took them a long time to like see that this is what, like, legitimately that this is what I was gonna do. Like I think they just thought like, oh, okay, it's something he's really interested in, and obviously he's very passionate about it, and he's good at it. Like they never denied that I was like good at what I was doing, so like they were never against it. But I think now, I mean, I hope they're proud of me. I don't know. I think now they're happy with what I'm doing now, you know. But it took a really long time. Like up until like only a few years ago, my dad was still telling me like, oh, so you're gonna get a job or like what? And I was like, I have like 5 jobs. What are you talking about? like, and then like, yeah, I don't. It's yeah, but they were always supportive. Like I don't want to come off as like that they were anti like it. I think that it's just the thing is like with like my parents are really old. They're super old school. Like so like it's hard for them to like to see like what I see. Like we're a different generation, so we see ourselves as like professional creatives, and that being like a career, and they just don't understand. It just took a long time for them to really understand that. So. But good question. I'm glad you asked that.
Awesome. So we've got 7 minutes left on our time here, and I'm wondering if I can coax you into maybe one more song. Huh?
Sure.
Dale,
Why not?
otra.
Why not? De pilón.
Dile, Sandra, otra.
So I'm gonna sing another song from my album, which I don't know if this is the right place to plug my album or not, but I have an album out for my artistic name. My name's Alejandro, but my artistic name I go by Flaco Alejandro, and you can find me on all the social places, on Instagram, on MySpace or whatever, and then you can find my album on Spotify. It's called, or Apple Music or whatever. It's called Canciones para curar la depresión. And this is my favorite song that came from that album. It's called Aférrate. It goes like this. Ya no contestas mis llamadas, aunque te extraño y me extrañas. Dices que no me quieres ver, eso es mentiras, yo lo sé. Más bien me quieres convencer que no necesito tu ser, pero feliz sin ti no soy. A tu casita yo me voy para llevarte serenata, piedritas tiro a tu ventana y tu abuelita me reclama. Doña, es que necesito verla y ella me manda a la verte. Es lo que yo tengo que hacer, en tus ojos hacia tu alma, porque tú eres mi mujer, eres mi prenda amada, eres todo mi querer. Aférrate a mi amor porque nunca se va a vencer. Te dañé y eso entiendo, nadie merece sufrimiento, juro que no lo vuelvo a hacer, te doy mi corazón también. Ay, tu sonrisa me relaja, todas las fotos que me mandas a las 4 de la mañana. No puedo dormir sin mi chat. Y un día nos vamos a acariciarte, es lo que tengo que hacer. Tu cuerpo hacia tu alma, porque tú eres mi mujer, eres mi prenda amada, eres todo mi querer. Aférrate a mi amor porque nunca se va a vencer. Verte es lo que yo tengo que hacer, en tus ojos hacia tu alma, porque tú eres mi mujer, eres mi prenda amada, eres todo mi querer. Aférrate a mi amor porque nunca se va a vencer.
Oh man, it has been so much fun, such a pleasure to have you on. I want to, before we even jump off, I want to give Sandra an opportunity to ask you any questions or just say how she's feeling or anything like that. So Sandra, si tienes preguntas o algo, comentario, algo así, tell it now. Dile. No, I will not.
Comentarios.
Don't be shy.
Dudas, preguntas.
He can't buy it from the Zoom. Okay. Cool. Awesome. She said she's going to join us on Friday. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much our program today. But I did want to I know this is a big ask of you, Alejandro, but I did want to ask you to give if you could give one piece of advice, one piece of love, one piece of the words you would want to give either your younger self or just somebody like yourself, your parting, advice, what would the one thing be?
One thing? I have several things. I guess, well, because one, like, a piece of advice that I would give to, like everyone, can I give two pieces of advice?
Sure.
Too great. Okay. So, like, one thing that's, like, kind of general that I would tell everyone, and something that I've kind of, like, said already a few times, but it's just, like, surround yourself with the right people. Okay? Whether, like, that doesn't necessarily mean the people that, like, are as talented as you, or people who do the same things you do, or or not, even people who think the same way that you do, but just, like, the right people that inspire you to do, like, good things. Because everybody and their mom is going to tell you that you should do this and you should do that. But if you're around the right people that are going to inspire you, then that can take you to like great places. Okay, and that can also be flipped if you're around the wrong people who are gonna like not inspire you and who are just gonna like try to convince you to just chill and do nothing, then you're gonna chill and do nothing and stay like that. So like that's kind of like a general piece of advice for everyone. But if I had to give myself a piece of advice, because I was pretty good at that, I feel like I was pretty good at like not hanging out with like too many gangbangers and drug dealers and stuff. So like, so I think I did a pretty decent job at surrounding myself with the right people. But something that I kind of like took for granted or didn't understand when I was younger is that character matters a lot more than talent. So don't rely on your talent to take you anywhere, because you could be the most talented person in the world, but if people don't like you because you have poor character, then you're not going to go anywhere, because no one's going to want to work with you. So like being like, that's more of a piece of life advice than it is like creative advice. Like just like being a good-hearted person and like taking care of like your health and the health of the people around you it matters so much more than like being talented and being like the best. So yeah, I don't know how many more ways that I could say that, but that's super important. And unfortunately, it took me a little while to figure that out, because I could say honestly I made some questionable choices as a youth, where I thought because I was talented, quote unquote, I didn't have to have as great of a heart, but I was 100% wrong. And I've seen that a lot more with other people like that I've been around, because I've seen a lot of people that have like a lot of talent and they could be doing like amazing things, but unfortunately their heart's not in the right place as a human being. So they weren't fortunate enough to do as many great things as maybe they could have. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Yes. Right, all the snaps, all the aplausos, everything. I wish they had like a sound effect on Zoom where you could be like,
Yeah. Burr, burr, burr.
yeah, bam, bam,
Nico
bam.
Effect is here to do that.
Yeah, right.
Back me up.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Sandro, for just taking some time out of your evening to chat with us and to serenade us with your beautiful música. I feel really honored and just really thankful that you spent this time with us, and I'm sure the rest of our students and whoever is watching is enjoying. I feel like you gave some great advice and just really such a great example for all the other young students out there striving to be individual artists, to do their, to follow their art as a career. So thank you again. Sandra, Juanita, did you guys have anything to ask or, to add on before we leave him?
I don't have anything to ask, but I just really thank you for sharing space and for sharing your wisdom, and your path that you took. Because just like we've all been saying, we all have different paths. They don't look the same, whether it's with education or whether it's with, your craft. We all have a different timeline and a different path. So just, thank you for being honest and transparent with us, because I know that, a lot of people that will, watch this will probably identify with some of it. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you, Sandra. Gracias, Sandra. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much again, and we hope you have an awesome evening, and hopefully we can have you back again soon, whether it's in Creative Leaders or maybe in another fabulous program soon.
Awesome.
Ending. I'm like,
Oh my God.
To be continued.
yeah, absolutely. Gracias, Sandro. Thank you.